population explosion. We've reached a new milestone in the human journey. Last November, according to the United Nations, the number of people on Earth hit 8 billion. Our population has doubled in less than 50 years, just since 1974, the year the UN brought the world's countries together for the first intergovernmental conference to address population growth. At the time, only three metro areas were home to 10 million people or more: New York, Tokyo, and Mexico City. Today, there are more than 30. The reasons for this explosion are well known. Medicine, sanitation, and crop yields continue to improve dramatically. As a result, child mortality is plummeting and life expectancy is rising. Demographers at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Austria and the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation in the Seattle see the planet's human census reaching 9.4 billion and 9.7 billion respectively later this century. UN experts think we might hit 10.4 billion, but those figures mask accurate shift. Between mid-century and the year 2100, our ceaseless expansion is expected to abruptly stop. We're headed somewhere new. There is a consensus the world's population will peak probably because the end of the century, says Patrick Jerlin, who who oversees projections for the UN's population division. Even as our numbers swell, children and some adults alive today could be the first people in hundreds, perhaps thousands of years to see Earth's population plateau or even dip, with unfathomable consequences. Buried in the demographic data documenting fertility and longevity are striking contrasts in how we'll get there. More than half the population increase that's projected for the next quarter century is expected to come from just 8 countries in Asia and Africa: Pakistan, the Philippines, India, Egypt, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Nigeria, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Yet by century's end, populations could fall by half in nearly 2 dozen others, including Thailand, Spain, and Japan. What will these changes mean for our ever-evolving human history? Much can be learned from two countries worlds apart facing diametrically opposite realities: China and Nigeria. The United Nations has projected that sometime this year, for the first time in hundreds of years, China would no longer be Earth's most populous country. India would surpass it. Even before China's one-child policy was instituted in 1980, its birth rate had been declining. The country is in comparable economic growth, expanded education and career opportunities for women, and more have chosen to delay or forego motherhood, even as the number of women of childbearing age has dropped. Although people in China are living longer, its population, now about 1.4 billion, has started to decline. The workforce that made China the world's factory had already been shrinking for a decade. By 2050, China could see 500 million people older than 60. This balance between young and old will be China's great challenge. On top of the world, these newborns in hospital in India, in Noida, India, are among the reasons the country will overtake China this year to become the most populous. After mid-century, India's population may begin to decline, but it could remain the largest country through the turn of the century. So we have a new word here, which is overtake. Overtake basically means to go past a moving vehicle or person, or to become greater than someone else. A continent away, things look different. Nigeria's median age is just 17, less than half that of China. The fertility rate there is falling too, but remains but remains about 5 times as high as in China. The country's population, now about 224 million, could more than triple by the end of the century. About a third living in extreme poverty, nearly half the number of people living in extreme poverty in India, which has a population more than 6 times as large. Hunger is already a concern. Millions in Nigerians are at risk of starvation. How will we navigate the simultaneous booms and busts? None of these projections adequately account for the potential strain on Earth's finite resources. Fish and wildlife are already disappearing quickly. The climate change is becoming the greatest threat in history to biodiversity, food security, and access to water for drinking and farming. Yet at extreme heat, rising seas, and severe weather promise to increase migration. Our population trends, too, could initiate more movement between countries as those with dwindling workforces desperately seek labor from outside the borders. In high income countries such as the United States, immigration would drive population growth. In 1968, when Earth had just 3.5 billion people, biologist Paul Ehrlich, in his famously dire book The Population Bomb, fretted about overpopulation causing hundreds of millions to die from famine. Instead, a green, a green revolution, the widespread adoption of fertilizers, mechanization, and high-yield crops transformed agriculture. We're still hurtling toward a future with far more people, but some places also far fewer. Will human ingenuity and the billions more brains at our disposal find ways to cope with this new reality? Nigeria and China may be our biggest test. The demographic divided. When fertility rates drop and workers make up more than two-thirds of the population, a country with a functioning economy has a rare opportunity to invest in itself. China already reaped this dividend. Nigeria's lies in the near future. But if there are more people on Earth than ever, but that disguises a new reality. This century, we could hit a peak and begin to decline. Some countries will continue to grow rapidly, while others will see their numbers drop. China, beginning the decline. Fears of overpopulation led to the one-child policy in 1980. By 2009, the share of the population that was working age has started its descent. Nigeria, workforce on the rise. The fertility rate is expected to fall in the coming decades, yielding a higher ratio of workers to dependents and setting the stage for demographic dividend after 2015. Immigration has allowed countries such as the US to mitigate a reduction in the fertility rate with an influx of economically productive adults. Influx mean the fact of a lot of people, money, or things arriving somewhere. India nearing the peak. Nigeria can look to India as an example of what to expect. In India is projected to reach its big percentage of workers in 2032. Italy, over the cliff. Countries with older populations provide a cautionary tale. When the fertility rate is too low for too long, the share of the working population plummets. A less fertile world. Improving women's access to education, employment, and birth control has helped cut the global fertility rate in half since 1950. Sub-Saharan Africa, which has not evenly experienced these social changes and where large families are the norm, is there when women have an average of 2.1 children each, often called the replacement rate, populations remain stable. More than two childs of countries now have fertility rates below this benchmark. Population pyramids help illustrate the share of country's people, the oldest and the youngest, that depends economically on those of working age. As a country's mortality and fertility rates decline, pyramids can shift from a broad, broad base on young people, as in Nigeria, to more uniformly vertical. When there are more older people, the shape appears top heavy.